Early in the morning at the airport, with crowds bustling through the terminal, an unexpected event was unfolding at the boarding gate. Captain Harris, an experienced pilot, was preparing to board the plane ready for takeoff. However, as he approached the gate, something strange happened. Max, the German Shepherd police dog, suddenly started barking furiously at him. This was unlike any other time, as Max was not just barking, but displaying clear signs of stress. The dog's eyes narrowed, its body stiffened, and it was obvious that something was wrong. Sergeant Allen, who had worked with Max for many years, immediately recognized the difference in the dog's behavior. This wasn't Max's normal reaction to strange smells or sounds. The dog was trying to warn them of something serious. It wasn't just Allen who noticed it. Officer Thompson, who had accompanied them on many missions, also felt the tension in the air. A sense of unease slowly built up, and they couldn't ignore the anomaly. Max continued barking, but what made them more worried was its attitude. Its eyes were fixed intently on Captain Harris, not once wavering. Sergeant Allen and Officer Thompson noticed something was amiss. While the people around them remained oblivious, Max seemed to detect a danger that others couldn't see. The dog's ears stood upright, and its body became rigid, ready to leap at any moment. The officers knew that if they didn't act quickly, something bad could happen. Sergeant Allen, with his sharp instincts and experience, understood that this was not Max's usual reaction. The dog never barked without reason. The growing sense of confusion became more palpable, and they couldn't ignore it. The tension was not only coming from Max's actions, but also from the anxiety of the onlookers. Allen and Thompson couldn't disregard these signs. Something bigger was happening, and they needed to find out what it was as quickly as possible. Amid the bustling crowd, Max's warnings continued, and the atmosphere became increasingly thick with tension. An overwhelming sense of urgency filled the air, making everyone around them begin to notice and worry. At that moment, Sergeant Allen and Officer Thompson realized they had to act immediately. Something was wrong, and they needed to figure it out before it was too late. "Pilot, you cannot board the plane right now," Sergeant Allen ordered, his voice stern, his eyes never leaving Max. Max, a specially trained German Shepherd, kept barking at Captain Harris, growling with visible tension. Captain Harris, though confused by Max's strange behavior, nodded in agreement, but his confusion didn't end there. Max wasn't just barking. It was displaying a determined attitude, its sharp eyes never leaving him, as though trying to stop him from doing something. The officers, having worked with Max for years, couldn't overlook this odd behavior. Sergeant Allen and Officer Thompson knew the dog didn't bark without a reason. They had witnessed Max reacting to normal situations many times before, but this time it was different. Max seemed to be trying to warn them of something, and it became even more apparent as it moved around Harris, growling and refusing to back down. "Officer Thompson, check his bag," Sergeant Allen commanded quickly, never taking his eyes off Max. Thompson didn't hesitate, immediately stepping forward and starting to inspect Captain Harris's bag carefully. Every move was made quietly and cautiously, trying not to cause too much disruption among the growing crowd of passengers, who were beginning to murmur anxiously about the strange incident. The air around them became tense, and those nearby started to feel something was off. They didn't know the cause, but the constant barking Max made the atmosphere suffocating, as if an invisible danger was looming in the space. However, despite the officers' thorough efforts, nothing unusual appeared in Harris's bag. All the items inside seemed normal. There were no signs of weapons, explosives, or any threats. Yet, Max still wouldn't stop, its gaze never leaving Harris, and its growls grew more tense. There was no indication that the danger was coming from Harris's luggage, but Max was reacting intensely as though it sensed something only it could perceive. Everything seemed to be at a dead end. The officers had thoroughly checked each item in the bag, but nothing suspicious was found. Questions began to arise in Sergeant Allen's and Officer Thompson's minds. If it wasn't in the luggage, then what had caused Max's strong reaction? How could a dog sense something that humans couldn't see or understand? Suddenly, as they moved to check Harris's coat, an unexpected detail appeared. Officer Thompson, while scanning the lining of the coat, suddenly discovered a small piece of fabric hidden inside. He gently peeled back the fabric, and a metal object was revealed. It was an old, rusty metal object resembling a dangerous device. Max immediately turned around. Its gaze shifted towards the object, and it started barking louder than ever. Sergeant Allen and Officer Thompson stood frozen, staring at the strange object in their hands. This was no ordinary item. It appeared to be an old mechanical device with no clear sign of its origin or purpose. Although it wasn't an immediate bomb, there was a palpable tension in the air. This discovery couldn't be a coincidence. Max had clearly sensed the danger from the start, even before the officers could recognize it. "We need to check this more thoroughly," Sergeant Allen said, his voice serious. He immediately gestured for Officer Thompson to recheck the object in his hands. Max continued barking and growling as if it had known the danger of this device for a long time. Officer Thompson, with a worried expression, began to inspect the object more carefully and noticed that part of it might be an activation mechanism, possibly related to a decoy or some other dangerous mechanism. Though there were no clear signs of explosives, the object remained a potential threat that could not be ignored. The officers couldn't overlook any detail, and they knew they had to act immediately. Sergeant Allen and Officer Thompson quickly ordered the bomb squad to come to the scene. The tension still lingered, but at least now they had found something that could explain Max's strange behavior. Max kept barking, as if reminding them that every second counted. The dog had done what the officers couldn't. It detected the danger before anyone else could. And although everything wasn't entirely clear yet, one thing was obvious. Max had saved them, once again proving the loyalty and incredible abilities of police dogs. Max immediately turned around, its eyes locked onto the strange object, and its barking grew louder than ever. All eyes were now on the dog, and the tension in the air escalated. Sergeant Allen, sensing the abnormality, quickly approached Max. He stood still, carefully observing the object Max was fixated on. A sense of anxiety rose within him, and unease began to spread. This object could be an extremely serious threat. Perhaps a bomb, something capable of causing a large explosion, but there were no obvious signs of explosives. However, what Max was doing could not be a coincidence. The dog, with its excellent instincts, had surely sensed the danger long before anyone else had. Its eyes never left the object, and its barking grew more intense, as if trying to warn everyone about something urgent. Officer Thompson, who was standing nearby, also couldn't shake off the feeling of worry. He glanced at the object and then turned to Sergeant Allen, his face pale, clear anxiety in his eyes. "Sergeant, I think we've got something. This looks like an old detonator, but I'm not sure." Thompson's voice was trembling, and his hands shook slightly, unable to hide his tension. Sergeant Allen, maintaining his composure despite the rising turmoil within him, stepped closer to the object. He examined it closely, then looked at Max, and finally his eyes shifted back to Officer Thompson. "Yes, it looks like a detonator," he said in a serious tone. "But it could just be a decoy. We don't have time to hesitate. Call the bomb squad immediately." He ordered the bomb squad without delay, his hand beginning to tremble as he realized the gravity of the situation. A taut, nerve-wracking feeling filled the air, making it thick with tension. Everyone present knew they were facing an extremely dangerous situation, and now every decision had to be made immediately. Captain Harris, still standing nearby, was pale and panicked, looking desperately at the object. He raised his hand, trying to explain, but his voice was shaky, as if pleading for someone to believe him. "I don't know how it got there," he said, breathing heavily. "I've never seen it before. It's not mine. I don't know who put it in my coat." Harris's words didn't ease Sergeant Allen's concerns. He understood that the pilot might genuinely have no idea about the object. However, they couldn't ignore the possibility that this was a decoy. A sophisticated plan to cause widespread panic and potentially lead to a disaster if not dealt with promptly. The object might not be an actual bomb, but it could still pose a significant threat, enough to cause chaos and disrupt everything. Max still refused to take its eyes off the object. Its gaze remained fixed on what only it seemed to recognize as danger. The dog, with its instincts, might have detected something that everyone else couldn't perceive, a hidden threat, just waiting to explode. Harris, now completely bewildered, couldn't believe he was caught in such a dangerous situation. He thought he had followed all the procedures and flown safely as usual. But now, he felt like a pawn in a game he hadn't even participated in. Someone had deliberately put him in a difficult position, a scam that he had no idea about. He couldn't imagine that anyone would go so far as to plot harm against a pilot like this. Someone was intentionally creating chaos, and he was their target. Max continued barking, as if the dog already knew the truth. It stared intently at the object, and every action it made reflected the urgency of the situation. Sergeant Allen, though deeply worried, understood that Max was the only one who truly knew the danger hidden in that object. The dog had detected the threat when it was still something unclear to humans. Now, it was the officer's responsibility to deal with the situation quickly and accurately. The tension in the air grew heavier than ever. Harris, though panicked, knew that everything was beyond his control now. His words held no value at this moment. He could only stand there, helpless, watching as the officers quickly set their plan in motion, while Max remained focused, unwavering, and continued barking as a final warning. When the bomb squad arrived and began to examine the object, they discovered that it was not a real bomb, but a fake device. A decoy created to make everyone believe that there was a much greater threat than reality. The object didn't contain any explosives, but it was enough to cause panic and disrupt everything if it wasn't detected in time. This explained why Max had reacted so strongly. The dog wasn't just being alert to a danger it sensed, even if it was just a decoy. The investigation later revealed that someone with a personal vendetta had set Harris up. This person had intentionally created a dangerous situation, aiming to make people believe in the threat, causing panic and confusion. However, thanks to Max's excellent instincts, the plan was thwarted. Max not only helped detect the threat before anyone else realized it, but it also saved Harris from the potential chaos that could have occurred on the plane if the object hadn't been discovered in time. As things settled down and Harris was taken to a safe area, he sat quietly, his gaze fixed on Max with deep gratitude. Max, not just a police dog but a loyal companion, had saved him from an unimaginable disaster. Harris, still shaken, felt a deep sense of thankfulness toward Max. "I will never forget what you did," he thought. This dog wasn't just a trustworthy friend, but a true hero, always ready to protect and help in the most difficult situations. This story reminds us that our four-legged friends are not just loyal companions, but silent heroes. Max proved that a dog's instincts can help save human lives in the most critical situations. It's their intelligence, loyalty, and exceptional ability to sense danger that saved a life and prevented a disaster. Thank you all for following this story. Remember, just like Max, sometimes small actions from us can make a big difference. Always cherish your loyal friends, for they are the true heroes in real life.